Is it rolling? We're rolling.
Right.
Actually, the last time I spoke to you, you were hinting about this book, which was 2 years ago. Around tour.
Well, I'd begun this book 3 years ago. I flogged it to the publishers last year, and now I'm flogging it to Joe Public from here on in.
That's great. And so I've been eagerly waiting this occasion for 2 years at least.
Well, you can't rush fine talent, can you? I had other things to do, you know. I'm usually running 3 or 4 projects all at the same time, so things tend to get half done in alarming lumps.
At the time, you hinted that it was more or less a, just the damn coffee in here, reaction.
I'm here.
Come. We'll wait for a second. Great. Unload. There's one for in there, right?
This one's yours, has milk in it.
Cheers.
Great.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay.
Right. Whatever. Yeah. Brain science. Where was I? It was odd, and in speaking to you, because you were obviously like thinking about it a lot.
Well, I've had 17 years or so of people pontificating, mystifying, mythologizing, exaggerating and telling basic lies about what is basically a very simple story. I get back to reality in this little book here, that like what I'm releasing, because I think it's about time people actually realise that the truth is better than all that gunk and fantasy.
It's a good read in that it isn't myth building, it isn't myth tearing down, it isn't a rock and roll story. It is a personal story.
Yeah, it's how people relate to each other. If ever you want to get on in this industry, I advise you to read this, because there are more than a few indications as to where you can go wrong and what the end results will be.
As an audience listening, well, as an audience reading this book, is there something that we should walk away? Because there's many topics touched on it, a lot outside of what I'll call a rock and roll experience. There's so many issues addressed that, is there something as a reader that I should walk away with that you feel that you incorporated that I really should get, other than clearing up some of the myths and fallacies?
Oh my God, you got me there. Where do I begin? It's all about, don't be stupid, do educate yourself, or believe me, this system will eat you alive. You can't hide behind drugs or any of that stupidness, because it will just be the end of you. And I think we know that there's far too many suicides and overdoses with so-called rock legends. What these people really are is personal failures. It's not so difficult to be successful, succeed and handle it well. But all too few people don't want to know that. They just feel safe hiding behind rubbish.
Does it all come down to finding individuality within a society?
I think so, rather than following slavishly what you term the rock and roll lifestyle. I said there is no rock and roll lifestyle. This is another myth. Ignore that. Do things your own way. Make your own rules. So long as you don't deliberately step out of the way to hurt other people or to destroy their lives, then I think everything shall be fine. Of course, they will hate you for it, but believe me, in the long term, it's worth it.
There's also a sense that runs through the book of of a high sense of morals and a complete understanding and responsibility for what you do, which kind of seems to not contradict, but sometimes go at odds with some of the messages that...
It goes at odds with the presses and certain lousy journalists and people I've worked with in the past, their idea of what the Sex Pistols were. But I've stopped that, and I've put a full stop to that, I think, in this book. I think things are well explained, and about time and all. The reason it took so long is because I have my public image to consider, and I have my solo projects too. And I really wanted that part of my life to just be forgotten about, because it all sadly came to a very quick stop. And the demise of a friend of mine, Sid, it was very hard for me to deal with, but I think it has to be done now. You have to know the reality. You can't keep on living these stupid lies, and I know this is going to upset a lot of fake pretend punks and journalists and idiots who are still making money out of the mythologizing. Well, that's of no interest to me.
There's tons of indie bands, what they call, come through these doors every day, and most of them are quite young. And they refer to this punk ethic a lot of the times, and with such grandeur and grandeur, and they feel like it was a great passage of time, that was this big, huge movement that was really only 2 years, if that, before it was diluted
and ended up really watered down into some vagueness called goth rock and alternative, and really all those things don't do anything at all. There just doesn't seem to be any content. Everybody yaps on about their punk ethic and how they were easily influenced and greatly impressed by the past, but were they really? Did they learn the lesson? I find it hard to believe with a lot of them. A few of them out there may be. I'm not here to sing their praises or really condemn anyone in particular, but I think these bands know who they are.
Would you think that maybe even the concept, it would be unfair to expect?
Look, the minute you like your record in the alternative bin proves that you don't deserve to be there. It's just simple. You've accepted a category, a categorization. Therefore, you are the problem, not the solution. You're labelled. You've lost your personality. You've lost your individuality. You're doomed, and down to the dustbins you will go.
In reading parts of the book and talking about how before the movement actually even had a name, and how different groups of society were coming.
Well, again, as I say, I really don't think there was a movement. There was the Sex Pistols, and there was an endless bunch of imitators, and that's how I remember it, and not too fondly.
But there was definitely a coming together.
Was there?
Well, like you said, some Teddy Boys were coming in, and
yes, these were strictly Sex Pistols audiences, which later did transfer to Public Image. Variety. You see, the early days was all about intense differences, just meeting all together in one place and not ending up in a brawl. And now that worked very nicely, but the press moved in, the lesser bands moved in on it, and suddenly punk became this wall-to-wall leather jacket with a mohawk look, and that's turned into what, New Age Travellers now, and grunge, and it's just boring. It's just a bloody uniform to me. They all look the same. Where's the we don't care about the music business, really, when you go out and you buy these designer plaid shirts? It's sod off, you don't impress me none.
But it's hard, because I get the points of turmoil in there when you think about some of the conformists in your audience, and some of the
there will always be sheep. That's the nature of the human race. That's fine, but don't let that be the majority. Plain and simple.
And then also,
And there are people out there that really can't help themselves. It's fine. Help them.
And also working with a record company and making the realization that you can't just do it for yourself. if that's...
You know damn well you can't just do it for yourself. You're going to have to work with someone at some point.
So it's sort of...
You can't just be a voice in the wilderness.
It's
Here I am, look, I'm doing it all on my own. Well, where is it then?
It's an odd bit where you have to work with other people who...
Which should not be perceived as a compromise. I know what you're getting at, because it isn't that at all. That's sharing. That's just quite an excellent thing to do. What you must do, if we're just making a record, for instance, is don't be greedy about the publishing. Make sure everybody gets an equal share, and I think you'll find that you'll write jolly nice songs that way. The second it's all done by one person or two and three are left out, you're going to get animosity. And that's where corruption starts.
Speaking of that, you have a solo record now, or in the works.
In the works, yeah.
And how I'm trying to come to terms with how...
Well, you'll love this, because I'm doing it all myself. So jolly good luck, Johnny. Well, obviously not everything. I mean, I'm liaising with a record company, it be Atlantic. I've got some good friends there. It's just a one-album deal that I really want to try to produce and play all on my own, because I don't think people respect or understand just how serious my involvement has been with music. I can do all these things. I just haven't bragged about it. So just for 1 year, I'm going to change that.
In the book, it said that you said that you never wanted to be a musician. Right?
I don't really see myself as a musician still. Noise disorganiser, structured chaos, that kind of thing. That's what I'm into. If you can bash three different sounds and remember the sequence and repeat it 2 hours later, that is a tune. That is a song. That's good enough for me.
So
you don't need to be Mantovani. It should all be about feelings. That's what noises and tones are, and too little of modern music has that. I said, a lot of the dance stuff is good for that, because it is literally bang, crash, wallop in your face. It's fine. It's the noise people like to hear when they're happy, but they have no vocal with it, and that's kind of soul destroying. Because anything without a voice is empty. It's devoid of life. It's just machinery.
And that's an accurate reflection of sort of society as well today. We listen too much to machines, and even the people running the machines are almost subservient to them. Crazy. Is there some sort of relevance today in today's society? Things have changed so much in such a short period of time that the relevance of what was going on in the book is very well done to capture and explain exactly what was going on in terms of social class and economics and everything at the time in the 70s when this was all taking place.
Yeah.
You get a really good flavor of what it was like and how things were transpiring, and that is really refreshing.
Yes. Well, people say, where does your anger come from? It's really simple to me. I don't see myself as a stupid person. I've done the best I can to improve myself. But that does you no good at all in Britain, because the attitude is you were born into the wrong class, therefore you will stay a slave to the system forever and ever and ever. It doesn't matter what you do, what you achieve, how much money you make or any of that, you still will never, ever be seen as a social equal. And I find that utterly repulsive. And as long as things like that exist, I will be angry. And this is precisely why one of my absolute prize targets was the royal family, because that is the kind of institution that maintains prejudice.
Absolutely.
And America has a love affair with the royal family, which I find deadly curious. I mean, maybe you see them as Disney objects. I mean, they would be good at the Epcot Centre. But when you have to live under a regime like that, we're told daily that they are superior to you for no other reason other than their family were robbers, liars, cheats and thieves several hundred years ago, it's very difficult to accept.
It's, in one way, it's almost...
because that's how they got there. Families, they're parasites.
It's easier to identify in the UK, that sort of thing. In the United States, the caste system is so cleverly disguised.
Nonetheless, it is there, and I don't really hear anyone out there doing anything about it. And quite frankly, alternative music, if that's what it really be, should be stating this. An alternative way of life. Get rid of the problems. Otherwise, you're really maintaining them. You can't just pretend they're not there. You can't just be all in this just for the hedonistic ego.
It's true. Wow.
It just strikes me as very odd that people can say things, and very many musos do, to me, that they don't know how I can still find things to write about. It's shocking. There's a whole world out there, and they end up with trite love songs, don't they not?
And it's crazy because most of the things to write about are exactly the same things that always needed writing about.
As long as there's more than two people on this earth, there will be problems.
And it's almost unrealistic to think that not. And in just saying that, is acknowledging human nature, and it's a better understanding of human nature, not a condemnation.
Not at all. It's an appraisal, if anything. The fact that you accept these things and try to deal with them, rather than just ignoring them.
Or
I get very angry when I listen to brain-dead punk rock versions, because they're just so negative. It's not doing anything. It's, I want to be a brain donor. It's as relevant as Oprah.
I was just going to say, and flailing your head against the wall is just as ludicrous as well.
Well, breast implants are never going to improve your personality, are they? You just become an object of somebody else's desire. It's not a pleasant thing to want to be. An object. So I think any old silly cow that goes and puts that kind of thing in her body deserves to have them explode, and you definitely shouldn't be like dedicating chat shows to it.
It is another thing. Another thing that comes through very succinctly, and it relates to the sense of morals that I brought up before, is your relationship with your family, and especially now in hindsight, your father, who, I don't know if it was...
I'd prefer the word retrospect. I don't like that term, hindsight. It's derogatory. Hindsight is what my enemies suffer from.
Did the process of making this book make you assess things differently, and maybe come to some...
I know what you're saying. No, all of this was before. I could never even have sat down and contemplated putting this together unless I'd cleared that up in my head a long time previous. I definitely never thought about manipulating it into a way of making money. The book is a natural extension, a flow on from that, and not the other way around.
Well, Well, I mean, it just...
So it was very difficult for me to come to terms with my a large amount of my past.
It's...
But you're going to have to if you want to go forward, and by avoiding my past for some 17 years, I've been rather foolish, I think, and I've allowed people to manipulate me precisely because I wouldn't deal with it.
There's
And I can't constantly have journalists referring to other books and things about me that I know nothing about. It's not right, and hopefully this will just stop that finally once and for all.
And you're working on a documentary as well?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there'll be no Sex Pistols reunion. I don't want to look like some 40-year-old tosser up there pretending to be 18 again, because I'm not. I know youth is all in the mind and all of that, but still, you've got to have some kind of self-respect.
Maybe you can do it.
So what I'll do is I'll just put out the documentary. What it is something like 600 hours of footage that's never been seen by anybody. All live performances and interviews at that time. There will be nothing new added. It will be everything from that period. Most of it unseen, ever.
Documentary.
That's for those that care. And I think if you really want to know what the Sex Pistols was about, it would be much more accurate to see it on film from that time, rather than us as a bunch of geriatrics prancing around at Shea Stadium, all looking really wasted and farted out.
Will there be narration?
No, there's no need. Believe me, there's no need for narration. It will begin exactly as it did and end when it did, chronologically. And I think that's the only way to do a documentary, and without the silly voiceovers and then there was the fateful bus trip. You know, none of that stuff.
This because the
no bollocks.
book is what I really like about the book is that
I'm in it a lot. Yeah, me too.
The way it stops and someone else's voice comes in and articulates sort of the same story. And
well, they don't always agree with me now, do they?
No,
and
exactly.
you have to have Dad in, because it can't just be me singing my own praises for 200-300 pages. I just don't think that that's interesting enough. And so, yes, of course there are other people in now.
It really gives it a perspective, and like I was saying before,
A sense of the time. It's historically accurate.
And because I mean, I'll be in the same room with a couple people, and a week later, not so many years later.
I know.
Of the same
That's
story.
right. Well, this is as close as you can get to it.
And it's refreshing to.
Because I don't think any of these people would dare have got it wrong.
And it's a matter of
because
right
it's print and be damned with me.
Is it a matter of being right or wrong?
No, it's all about perceptions, really, and how you remember them. And this is from points of view that have not been considered. Probably because we kept so silent about it. But there's always a time for everything, and I do feel this is right for now.
Well, I don't know. Kind of cool.
Right, me too. Make my day. Buy 2 each, boys and girls.
That's great. I think we can wrap up. I got
one for Mum, one for Dad.
And well, that was one of the things.
Buy 3, one for the divorce lawyer.
What I was addressing was the relevance to an audience today, outside of somebody who has.
Well, of course, it's incredibly relevant, because, as I said, if you want to know how things can go wrong and how things can go right, then you should constantly be reviewing the past in the most accurate way you can. I mean, everybody seems to have read everybody else's words and pearls of wisdom. Well, now check me out. And you tell me then, after you've read, which you think is the more accurate. As far as I see it, no competition. But then again, I would, wouldn't I?